What's good, everybody? Andrew with the Medellin Buzz here. In this video, I'm going to go over how Medellin has changed, and it's changing. I came here in 2010 because I was deported from the United States. I had lived there for 26 years of my life. So let's talk about how the city has changed in regards to the people it's attracting from other countries. Back in 2010, the majority of the tourists were backpackers. This was because a few years before, Lonely Planet, the biggest backpacker travel guide, had included it, so a lot of people were stopping by on their way down to Patagonia or vice versa, going up into the United States or Canada. And people were coming through the city. They loved the city, but they weren't staying long term. The people that were immigrating here or living here as expats, they were mostly older people that were either living on a pension, they were early retirees maybe, or they just had businesses and were able to live here long term or buy a property and stay here half the year, 3 months. They weren't digital nomads, mostly older people living here permanently or semi-permanently. In 2011, Medellin was in the limelight for a positive thing, which was the electric stairs or the escalators that were put in Comuna 13, which is a very low income and at one point one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the world. Through innovation and a lot of hard work, they put these electric stairs in that comuna, which is up in the hills, to give access to that lower income neighborhood to the rest of the city. This allowed them to come and work, integrate with the rest of the city, etc. And that was a huge innovation for its time because nothing like it had happened in the world, really. So Medellin was now the talk of urban planning, was an example for the rest of the world, for lower income neighborhoods around the world. And it started to get awards for its innovation, for its drastic change, and people were becoming more curious about the city. And then the World Cup of 2014 came around, and Colombia did the best they've ever done, reaching the quarterfinals. Colombia again was in the limelight for something positive, which was football. And once people started searching for that, they found Medellin and they realized that it wasn't what it was back in the 80s or 90s. It was a lot safer, transportation was amazing, and cost of living was low. So more and more tourists started coming here. And in 2016, that's when I noticed more bachelor party guys coming out here. We're talking about 20 to 30 man crew coming in and taking up a whole hotel, mini hotel, or a giant penthouse or a giant mansion somewhere where they can rent it out off of Airbnb, because Airbnb had just gotten to the city as well. And they were renting it out for the weekend and treating Medellin like a mini Las Vegas, and with many valid reasons. I mean, some of the drugs here are decriminalized, prostitution is legal, and parties go on until 6 in the morning 2 days later. So people were taking advantage of that and celebrating bachelor parties and going nuts out here. And I saw a lot of that in 2016, or I saw an influx of that in 2016. The next memorable shift in tourist and expat coming down here was in 2018 when I started to see more solo female travelers. Remember, I got here in 2010, so from 2010 to 2018, I really didn't see any foreign solo women traveling in Medellin. And to me, it was almost like a shock when I first saw it. I was like, dang, I haven't seen a white woman in 8 years. But it's not only white women that were coming here and are still coming here. It's all shades of people coming down here. And for me, that was a positive, or at least a step in the right direction that Medellin was going. Because if there are solo female travelers, that means that there's a lot of good things about the city and safety was better, etc. And then we all know what happened. 2020 came and closed down the entire country. COVID hit and we were all locked up. Colombia had one of the longest lockdowns in the entire world. So we were pretty much stuck indoors for the most part. We didn't see much tourism, even though I did have one Airbnb back then. That was full the entire time because the people that were stuck here wanted to be stuck in a nice place. So I was lucky enough that my Airbnb was full the entire time. So when everything opened up again, 2021, we started to see more digital nomads. Like I said before, the digital nomads started to come around 2018 with the solo female travelers, people staying here longer, realizing that they can work here for a month or, be on vacation and still get stuff done. So people with money, with jobs, that wanted to stay here longer started coming in 2021. We saw more co-working spaces opening up, more boutique hotels and boutique hostels opening up with dedicated co-working spaces. Cafes with better internet have popped up all over the city, primarily El Poblado and Laureles, but there are some spots in Envigado and Belén. Another big change came in 2021 when we started to see more families coming to Medellin. And I'm not talking about foreign families, meaning that one of the parents is Colombian and the other is a foreigner. I'm talking about completely foreign families with children, and you see them pushing a stroller or walking down Provenza or walking in Barrio Manila or taking a cab to Parque Explora or Parque Norte, etc. And I remember after the pandemic, my dad came to visit after not being here for 36 years of his life. He was looking around at Provenza and we sat down to eat dinner and he's like, wow, I could never in my wildest dreams fathom that foreign families would be in my country as tourists. Because remember, 36 years ago, they were going through a civil war here and, then the drug wars came, etc. So for him, it was a complete shock. And he's right. I mean, it is very surprising. For us now, I sit outside sometimes and I see families walking by. It's normal. But I do remember that first time I saw a family walking by and I was like, wow, Medellin is definitely changing and it's attracting the right type of people. So now you'll see more family-friendly hotels, more family-friendly Airbnbs, people seeking things to do as a family or things to do with children. And since the cost of living is low, we're seeing some of those families wanting to stay here a year, 2 years, or maybe even raise their child out here. I know personally a few expat families that live here and have their kids at the private schools here that are bilingual or trilingual. Some of them teach English, Spanish, and French or German. And finally, in 2022, the proverbial floodgates were open when the Digital Nomad Visa was introduced to Colombia. And it's one of the easiest digital nomad visas to get around the world because you only have to show that you're making $800 a month. So a lot of people that had been to Colombia before, but that were only able to stay 6 months, are now coming in and getting that yearly visa. And if you apply for that digital nomad visa in your own country, you could get up to 2 years. So people are staying here long term. They're establishing their home base here for at least a year. And that includes single people, couples, and family. Because post-pandemic, we've all learned that we can work from home and be just as productive as being in an office. So now people can work from Colombia and spend less money because the cost of living is lower, and maybe even raise a family or save up enough money to buy an apartment or save up enough money to invest in another business, etc. So not only have these digital nomads that are staying here for a year affected local economy through restaurants and nightlife and just your daily activities and expenses, but also with the rental market, because these people come with income from the US, and most of these digital nomads are here for a year, so they're not really interested in renting an unfurnished apartment through a local rental agency and jumping through the hoops to do that. So they'd rather go the furnished route. But for a long time, the only furnished apartments available were a couple of local businesses that offered that, primarily Airbnb. So the prices on Airbnb have skyrocketed because the demand is high. And for a long time, the supply was small. Now the supply has gotten bigger, but the demand keeps growing. So these prices aren't really going down. And since most of these Airbnbs are owned by Colombians that don't have a mortgage on them or any liens, that means that if they don't get the price that they're asking for, they're not really worried about it because they're not paying a mortgage. They're not relying on that rental income. So they'll leave it on the market at $2,500, $3,000, $4,000 a month for their furnished 3-bedroom apartment in El Poblado up in the hills. And if it goes vacant for 6 months out of the year, it doesn't matter because the other 6 months will make up for it because the price is so jacked up and eventually someone will rent it. Prices won't go down no matter how much you'll complain about it. Expats that are staying here long term obviously know the way around the system here to be able to rent unfurnished for a long term at a fraction of that Airbnb price. If you're interested in finding that out, make sure to click the link in the description below to the Rent Like a Local guide that me and my team have spent over 100 hours creating. We've gone through over 30 rental agencies that work with foreigners with just a passport that don't charge that marked up Airbnb price. And also there are a few rental agents on there that speak English that can help you find an apartment if you are looking for something more long-term. And finally, 2023. Today, there is another shift in the type of people coming into Colombia. We created the Medellin Masterclass 2 months ago, and since then we've helped a lot of people make Medellin their home. And what surprised me the most is that everybody that's joined the Medellin Masterclass are people that are wealthy. Medellin is attracting the wealthy expat. And wealth is relative because your foreign currency goes a lot farther here than it would in your home country. So if you're making $2,000 plus per month, you are considered wealthy in Colombia. But recently, I've noticed that there are people that are making $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 or more per month that are wanting to come here and make Medellin their second, third, or fourth home. People that have properties in the Philippines, in Thailand, in Hawaii, in Brazil, in the United States, in Europe, that have traveled to Medellin before, fell in love with it, and they're like, man, I can spend $200,000 on a nice penthouse in Medellin, and I can be here 3 months out of the year. I'm in. And these aren't like retirees either. These are young people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, coming out here and buying a third or fourth property to live in Medellin for long term, whether it's the whole year or just 6 months out of the year or 3 months out of the year, and continue living their amazing life. So why are these people coming to Medellin? For the same reasons the digital nomads are here, because the infrastructure is great, the people are amazing, the weather's awesome, and the cost of living is low, meaning that your money can travel a lot further. For $200,000, you could get a really nice penthouse in El Poblado or in pockets of Laureles that are high-end, whereas in the United States or any developed nation major city, it's gonna be very hard to find anything for $200,000, let alone a penthouse in a high-rise. So a lot of people might think, well, these people are coming in here and taking advantage of the low cost of living because it's a poor country and buying up property. Yes and no. Yes, they are buying property and taking advantage of the low cost of living, but also no, they're actually contributing to the country. I don't want my country to be poor forever. I hope Colombians make money. Who is selling these properties? Who is allowing people to come in here with a minimum of $120,000 to get a property owner visa? Colombians are, because Colombians want to make money. And by people saying, oh, we've got to stop foreigners from coming down here and buying property, then you're basically saying that we want Colombia to stay poor so that I could pay my $400 rent per month. Eventually, everything is going to go up in price, and either you're going to be on the boat or you're going to be on a boat to the Philippines or Vietnam, where you can pay $200 or $300 per month for an apartment. We either change with the tide or we roll out with the tide. So if you're ready to make that change and you want to come down to Medellin, make sure to click on the link in the description below to the Medellin Masterclass. If you want to book a call with me, that link is in the description below as well. If you want to connect with me, follow me on Facebook. Again, that link is in the description below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay up,